speakers who have joined us here. So my name is Medhane. I'm a child adolescent and adult psychiatrist, and here in attendance with us are Dr. Claire Agar, who's a school psychologist with Prince George's County Public School, who has more than 40 years of experience working in mental health and the school system. She has a PhD in neuropsychologist. In the past, she's worked at the NIH as a mental health specialist in juvenile detention centers, and she has higher education teaching experience in colleges. Along with Dr. Agar, we're blessed to have 3 members of Eritrean and Ethiopian special needs children in attendance. To the left of me is Selam who's a parent and an ABA specialist therapist, so she will be talking to us about ABA. And to the right, next to Dr. Agar, is Alem, who's the president of the Ethiopian-Eritrean Special Needs Committee. It's a non-profit organization that does actually amazing services here in the DMV area, and she will talk to us. And farther right, we have another Azeb Araya, who's an educator in the special education system of Montgomery Public School System. So for those who are following the event in social media, Prince George's County and Montgomery County are 2 major counties in this in Maryland. So what we will do is, I will be very briefly talking about, an overview of special needs and autism. And when we get to the question and answer section, anybody can ask questions at the end. But for Dr. Agar, we will give you a few moments to ask questions. So the definition of special needs is any individual who does require special attention or services because of their physical or mental health. And this can be different forms of disabilities, but for the purpose and the scope of our presentation, we will be focusing on autism. Even though other disabilities can be intellectual disabilities, learning disorders, speech and language disorders, traumatic brain injury, and other neurological disorders, such as muscular dystrophy and cerebral palsy. So the question that we oftentimes hear is, what is autism? Autism is a neurodevelopmental disorder. It's a disorder that emerges early on in the development of children. So it impacts them in areas of social interactions, communications, and having specific behaviors. It can be diagnosed as early as 2 years, but the majority of cases can be diagnosed as early as 3 years old, and it depends on the severity. The more severe the case is, the earlier the diagnosis. And there are 3 different levels of autism, from level 1, 2, and 3, depending on their communication skills and the level of support they need in their day-to-day functionality. So level 1, they're able to communicate, and their need in terms of their day-to-day functionality is limited. So, as you may all know, there is an increased, at least diagnosis, but one can also say, rate of autism here in the United States, but more likely all over the world. Here in the US, the CDC collects data from all over the United States over time to look at the rates, which also will be important in the allocation of resources into the educational system and the healthcare system or social services. So there are 11 sites in the US. We have one of them here in Maryland. And depending on the region in the country, there are states like California that seem to show a higher rate, or at least diagnosis of autism. And there are other states that seem to have lower cases, and Missouri is one of them. So how they collect the data is from the school systems, healthcare providers, and social services, the information they give. So in 2021, 1 out of 44 children by 8 years of age were diagnosed with the autism spectrum disorder. A more recent data that I saw, where Autism Speaks has put out, they have indicated that the case could be as higher as in 1 out of 37 kids. So if you look at the ratio as to male versus females, for every 1 girl, there are 4 diagnosed cases in boys. But this may not be entirely accurate because the cases of autism in girls tend to perhaps be underdiagnosed, especially in milder cases. The data that I have seen speaks about similar rates in all races and ethnicities, but the question often comes up. We tend to see more cases of autism in our community, the Ethiopian-Eritrean community. And my response is, unless we have the data to support it, we cannot, with a high degree of certainty, say the rate is higher in our community. So the hope is future endeavors will look into this in terms of doing actual studies, and we hope our community will participate. But when you talk about, why the rates may have increased, there may be a few reasons. One is there is an increased awareness in the community about autism spectrum disorder, and what we're doing here by organizing events like this one is to increase the education and the awareness of autism spectrum disorder in our community, so parents would be able to seek help and be empowered to advocate for their children and try and achieve what they're eligible in terms of their rights. And the other reason may be there is increased screening and diagnosis in pediatrician practices, and there is a change in diagnostic criteria that has put and lumped all individuals on the spectrum to be known as autism spectrum disorder, rather than in the past used to be called Asperger's and PPD, or pervasive developmental disorder, NOS. To just touch on cause or etiology, why are we seeing more cases of autism? I guess I don't think we know definitely what the causes are, but they tend to be biological and environmental. And this is not any different than any other health condition. When we talk about biological, we're talking about genetic predisposition and inheritance, and how we can, with some level of conviction, say there is a higher rate of autism in what we call identical or monozygotic twins versus paternal or dizygotic twins. So monozygotic twins are born from one egg versus dizygotic twins are born from 2 separate eggs. And there was some study that the NIH conducted looking into some genetic markers for autism spectrum disorder. I don't think it's conclusive, but there are some genes identified that may be a risk factor. Other risk factors could be the the age of the parents, mother's age about 35, and father's age about 40. And then another factor here that comes with age is the fact that with prolonged age, there will be a higher exposure to environmental toxins that may cause mutation in the germ cells of the parents. You know, the older the parents are and the higher the exposure is, there may be a change and mutation of the genetic material in the sperm and or the egg. Other risk factors are very preterm labor. Any labor before 37 weeks is preterm. The much earlier it is, the higher the risk. Maternal infection during pregnancy, some birth injury that may cause low oxygen in the course of labor and delivery may be a risk factor. So, you know, early signs and symptoms are very important. When child visits are extremely important, where parents take their children, and special autism screening should be done by pediatricians at the age of 18 and 24 months. And I think it will be very important, and as part of what we're doing here to empower parents is when they have any concerns, any worries, any signs, to be able to ask the pediatricians. And but also to let the children be free and roam around in the pediatrician's office. So if the screening does show some risk factors or some signs, then the children should be referred to specialists to get, if possible, a diagnosis, but even a provisional diagnosis is important. The reason it's important is when you have a diagnosis, then you can access services. In our community, there is a challenge of accepting or entertaining this diagnosis, which unfortunately delays the children from getting services. And diagnosis can be done by pediatricians, developmental pediatricians, psychologists, neurologists, speech and language therapists, and maybe even other clinicians. So I'm going to stop here. I'm going to pass the microphone to Dr. Clara Gard, who will be talking to us about the special education system, and she's come here with slides.
Good afternoon. While I'm waiting the slides being loaded, I'd like to say to you that on the table, there are handouts. There is, one of the handouts has QR codes, and those codes give you access to a wealth of information, resources, community resources, resources in the school system. For those of you who are attending virtually, those QR codes will be at my very last slide, so you'll be able to access the information too. There's also a code that says evaluation, and what's important of that one is I think it was 3 questions. It's the question that asks, is there any topic about which you'd like more information? And that one I'd like you to answer, okay? Okay, even though we are here to talk about special needs children, I am striving with Georgia County office where international students are registered. And generally, students who are entering the country for the first time, they're registered at this office. But also, if you've got got a child at home who is preschool age or 5 years old, has never started school, and the only language you speak in your home is Amharic or some other language, any language other than English, you would register the child here so that when he or she starts school, the ESOL, which is English for speakers of other languages, those services can start immediately. Also, that office provides English classes for adults, and along with Prince George's Community College, adults can take certificate courses for careers in, I can't remember what they are, but there are 4 career tracks you can pursue. This office coordinates them with Prince George's Community College. Okay? And you can find the additional information on the website or on one of the resources on the handout. Okay, so Prince George's County Schools has what we call a multi-tiered intervention system, a multi-tiered support system, meaning their children can receive intervention at different levels. The very first level is what we call the SIP, which is a Student Instructional Team. And that team is just made up of school staff. There, teachers present cases about students about whom they're concerned, whether it's academic functioning, social functioning, attendance, all of that is discussed with that team. And interventions are suggested. So after that, the teachers go back and they implement the interventions that were recommended. The next team is the School Supplementary Services team. And that team includes people from outside of the building. The school psychologist is involved, speech and language pathologist, and if there's a student who we suspect has a vision or hearing issue, those specialists are included there too. There, we review the interventions that were recommended, were they successful, what helped, and what didn't. If it seems as though the child is meeting success with the interventions, that's where it stops, the process stops, and teachers are implementing those interventions. If for any reason there's no success or minimal success seen, the student moves on to the second team, the SST. And the SST is often that combination of the team I mentioned to you before and the IEP team. The IEP team is the Individual Education Program team, and it results from a federal law, IDH, which we'll talk about on another slide. Okay, when we see them, you can take a look at this. There are a variety of reasons that can initiate, that you can use for initiating help with the school system. It could be that you're not seeing any academic problems. It could be social issues. It could be that your child, you see changes in sleep pattern, appetite, a whole variety of things. The second slide has some additional factors that you can consider when determining if you should seek help from public schools. So give you a minute to take a look at those. And the reason I've mentioned things like sleep and appetite, loss of interest, is because there can be disabilities that aren't academic, but that impact the child's academic functioning. Okay? Okay, so the first thing, you seek help by seeking a parent-teacher conference. And I always suggest to parents that you prepare for the conference. The link takes you to a form that parents can use to prepare for the parent conferences. There you can list your concerns, things that you see as your child's strengths, and it also has a section where you list the recommendations that you receive from the teacher. So typically, you're the one generally leading the conference. This is your conference. And one of the things you need to know is when during these conferences, you can ask for a translator. Translators are hired as consultants to the school system by the International Student Office. And we've got in-house translators in a few languages, most of them are just consultants. So we ask for a translator, and the translator will be there to aid you to, the meeting. At these meetings, whether it's just a parent-teacher conference meeting or an IEP meeting, you are free to take a relative, a friend, anyone who you think will give you some support. Because I know it's often difficult. Parents feel uncomfortable in settings with a whole group of people they've never seen. So taking someone can always be helpful. Preparing for the conference by having your concerns jotted down helps. If you don't use this form, just use a sheet of paper. Jot down where your concerns are, what your child's strengths are as you see them. So, when at the parent-teacher conference, what happens, the teacher will suggest interventions they can use with the child. Let's say you're concerned that the child is having difficulty reading. The teacher may suggest that the child goes to the reading specialist twice a week, or the child participates in a small group reading in the classroom, and whenever interventions are suggested, you need to make sure that they're done. I usually say 6 weeks, because you can't do something for 2 weeks and know whether it's having any impact or not. So generally, I suggest at a very minimum 4 weeks, but I prefer to see interventions implemented for at least a 6-week period. Okay, so the interventions are implemented. They're successful, that's it. So the interventions aren't successful, your child is still struggling. And this is where the law comes in. This is a federal law, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, we refer to it as IDEA. And this law, the process that one uses is consistent with everything that's required in this law. It involves determining eligibility for special education, writing an IEP, monitoring the child's progress each school year through progress notes, and parents are a part of this process. When you attend the IEP meeting, and let's say the team decides that assessments are necessary, there the team, the assessments that are being recommended will be done, will be discussed. And you have to sign a permission form for the assessments to be done. I've seen situations where parents don't sign, they just refuse to sign, and it's because they don't think that their child has anything wrong in terms of academic functioning or anything, and they just refuse to sign. But nothing can happen if you refuse to sign. And your rights and the students' rights are protected under this law. You have to be given, each meeting you attend, you have to be given a booklet that lists your rights under the law, and it includes, if you don't agree with something the school recommends, you can question it. You can ask for a hearing. If the child does have an IEP, and you feel that it's not being implemented the way it should be, or the services aren't sufficient, you can query all that. And so the student rights document gives you that, all of that information, including how to query anything with which you disagree. And the law, it covers children from birth to age 21. Children birth to 3 years old are typically referred by pediatricians, but the parent can make that referral. And those children would be be ones who may have been born with a birth defect, or who may have four other children. You will see this one child that is not developing the way that the others have. You can initiate a referral by contacting the special ed department early identification office. They'll schedule an assessment. If the child is found eligible for any kind of service, often, not always, but often, it's done at home. So that's birth to 3 years. And then from 3 years old, the referrals are done at school or from the parent. And once a child is found eligible for service, they can remain in school until age 21. The law covers them until 21 and provides whatever services are that they need. Dr. Selassie mentioned that there are a variety of disability categories, and there are actually 13 of them. And there's a 14th one, which is used, called developmentally delayed. And that's for children, according to the law, that's for children 5 years to 9 years old. But Prince George, I think Maryland, uses 5 to 8. And that could be a child who's having trouble speaking, a child who may be having motor difficulties, a whole variety of difficulties. And up to age 8, they can be classified with a developmental delay as a disability, as opposed to speech and language delayed or any other thing. And the reason that you want to do that is because often when kids are young, you know there's something, but it's not quite clear. So you go with developmentally delayed, at age 8, you revisit it, do an assessment to determine exactly what it is that may be going on and what other specific type of help will be needed. And one of the other things in the law, you have got a right to have all documents provided to you in your language. Prince George's County technically doesn't do this without the parent requesting it. So you request it, and then unfortunately it can take up to 4 weeks, because then whatever the document is has to be sent to the translation office, they translate it and send it back to the school. And that goes for even the parent permission form for assessment. You can have that translated, which would mean that the assessment is delayed until you have the document presented to you in a format that you understand. The assessments that are done are determined by the referral question. What concerns do you have, as the parent have? What concerns do school teachers have? So that's how we determine. So there are assessments in a wide variety of areas. As a psychologist, I do the psychological assessments. And there, most psychological, 95% of them include what's called an IQ test, a test of cognitive functioning. And that looks at problem solving, overall thinking ability, and it looks at them in both verbal and nonverbal means. Meaning the self-test items, the child has to respond by speaking. All these are presented in pictures, blocks, diagrams, and they either just have to point or reconstruct a figure with the blocks. That gives us a sense. Some children function better with manipulatives, like the blocks, rather than they do when they've got to respond verbally. And that's important information to have. If one of the complaints is this child doesn't seem to retain anything that's taught in class. A parent may say, your child comes home, it's time to do homework, and the child has no idea what to do. So that suggests to me there'll be a memory problem. So I'll include a test that looks at memory and learning. If we get a student who's got problems with, let's say, attention or activity level, I'll include rating scales that measure what's called self-regulation. And self-regulation is exactly what it says, the child's ability to control their behavior. Because the thing is, every time a child has an attention problem, it's not ADHD. There are lots of other conditions in which disordered attention is a characteristic. So I look, based on what the information that's discussed in the meeting, I decide which measure I'll use, what I formulate a hypothesis, and I use the test to help me to find out what's going on. There may also be a test of what's called executive functioning, and really what executive functioning is a set of brain-based behaviors that guide everything you do, or decision-making, or thoughts, or emotional control, and all that. And the reason I include that is that in ADHD and in other behavioral conditions, psychiatric conditions, executive functioning is often, in some area of executive functioning, is often impaired. For children, if the concern is handwriting, I'll include something that looks at that. So basically, the psychological assessment is guided by whatever the referral question is. Sometimes we get children who it's suspected that they have an emotional disability. And again, if it sounds like depression, I'll include measures of depression. If it's something like anxiety, I'll include a measure of anxiety too, but also a measure that looks at emotional functioning in totality. Because there are times I think it's depression or anxiety, and it's not. So that's why I've got to include a measure that looks at every possibility. That's what evaluations look like. Can you go to the next slide, please? Oh, and then the IEP. So we come back to the meeting. All the assessments are done. Psychological and which other assessments were recommended, they're done. We come back to the meeting, IEP team, you were there, and there is a discussion, the test results are discussed. And then the team determines if the child is eligible for special education. And the child could be eligible in any of the 13 disability categories I mentioned. Things like epilepsy and ADHD, and we have things like kids with kidney disorder, kidney problems, or sickle cell. The disability category that's used for those is other health impaired, because those are all health conditions. So at the meeting, the determination is made of the disability, if there is one, because there are times you do assessment if the child doesn't meet disability criteria under IDEA. So once it's determined the child has a disability, then an IEP is developed. And that's done by the special educator, and it's got to be done within 30 days of that meeting, that initial meeting. And the IEP includes the child's functioning in all the areas measured, and it includes the goals that you're going to work toward. It includes any supplementary modification or aids that are going to be used for the student. And there are times that, say, a child is found to have a learning disability. And they also have a speech-language impairment. Then services with the speech pathologist will be included there too. So we've got students who are classified with a learning disability or ADHD, but they may have something else going on, like vision impairment, hearing, speech-language. So those services are included too. And those tend to be, the therapists, they determine how often those occur. But it's not every day like the special ed services. Okay? What else do we need to know? I think that's it. Oh, I think we skipped one. Can you go back? Can you get the one, please? So you're in the meeting, and it's found that the child doesn't have a disability according to the way IDEA defines disability. Then there's another law. You may have heard about the 504 plan. That is Section 504, that's governed by civil rights law. Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. And what that law says is that there should be no discrimination because someone has a disability. And it's applicable to adults in their jobs, students in school. And so sometimes we get a child who, on the idea, doesn't have a disability, but the team recognizes that the child can benefit from supports. That child is then going to be referred to the 504 And like idea, you have the 504 goes along with a booklet that outlines your rights as a parent to check the child's rights. And the major way in which the 504 plan differs from the IEP is that the IEP involves direct instruction. When a child is found to have a disability under 504, there's no direct instruction. There are just changes, modifications, accommodations made to the child's learning environment. And it could be something as simple as having the child sit away from distractions, extended time. It could be giving the child a copy of the teacher's notes because the child is inattentive or doesn't write fast enough to copy the notes. It can include allowing the child to use noise-reducing earphones in the classroom while they're doing independent work. So the 504 plan has a whole range of things, and the accommodations included on the plan, again, are guided by what the concerns are. With students who may have diagnoses like that's emotional, like depression or anxiety, they may be given an opportunity to have a pass to go to the counselor's office or a quiet place whenever they need a break. Students may have difficulty being in the hallway with anxiety when there are a lot of students. They may be released from their classes early to get to another class. So the 504 is all about changes to the environment to equalize the child's functioning with their non-disabled peers. Okay, next one. Okay, and lastly, again, I know we should be talking about special ed, but we do have students who have disabilities, but are also in the talented and gifted program. So having a disability doesn't mean you can't be gifted. And those children are referred to as twice exceptional because they've got a disability and they're talented and gifted. So screening for talented and gifted, everybody's tested from 2nd to 4th grade. And there's a cutoff test scores, and if a child obtains a test score, then they go on to the other areas of screening, which looks at areas like creativity, teacher reports, and all that. Let's say a child enrolls in school after the screening has been done. Then the parent can ask to have your child screened. Or your child is screened and the school tells you they're not eligible. You can then make a referral. You can make a referral if you want your child re-screened. And there are talented and gifted programs from elementary all the way to high school, and they differ at each level, which have a variety of programs for students and parents. And on the handout, there is a link to the community schools. I think that's it. And again, access those documents using the QR code and then evaluation telling me if there's anything else you'd like information on. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Agard, for your very informative presentation. And if there are any questions from the audience.
So, I'm part of the audience, I'm not part of the audience, but I have a question. What do we do wrong? What do we do wrong when, as parents, we go through this process? What are common things that people do that's wrong? And I know there's going to be a long list, but just probably 2 or 3 highlights?
Okay, as you can tell, I've got an accent that's not American. So I'm an immigrant, and we're all immigrants in here. And one of the things I see often among immigrant parents is denying that their child needs help. And it's often because there's a sense of shame or embarrassment, what are family members going to think. And I think a part of me can understand it, but at the same time, I think parents should want what's best for their children. And if there's a problem for which the child can receive additional support, I think what we should work through it, of course, as parents, but ultimately make the decision that's in the child's best interest. And what's ironic, I also see parents from different groups, different racial groups, who come in like ADHD. And they want their child to be valued because they think they've got ADHD. And it happens in high school. And typically what it is, that parent is trying to get extended time for state tests, classroom tests, but especially for the SAT and ACT. And there's nothing wrong with their children, but they're pushing for that. And then some of us, we've got children who need help, and we're reluctant to have them get that help. And I think the thing is, we've got to realize there's nothing that we have done. There's nothing we could have done to prevent it. I think that's the biggest mistake I see immigrant parents making. The other is reluctance to approach school staff, whether it's the teacher, the principal, whoever. And again, I understand that. That's why I said earlier, take someone with you, a friend, a relative. Some people hire advocates, but those are very expensive. So take someone with you, and if you need an interpreter, make sure you say that ahead of time. And I think those are the two biggest mistakes I see happening. Oh, the last one. The last one we'll probably talk about this. There's some students that got conditions and they're very afraid for medication. As school system employees, we can't say, put your child on medication. So what I say to them is consider taking a report to your child's pediatrician or a mental health practitioner and discussing therapeutic options. And in many cases, I see where children begin medication and it's a complete difference. Some kids, their work improves just a slight bit, and other kids just, they just take off. And that depends upon what the condition is. And I think, I hear people telling me, oh, my neighbor or my friend said it's going to make them look like a zombie, or I read on the internet this, or I read that. No, speak to someone whom you trust. You've got a special needs group here in your community. Speak to someone there, not to your friends, your neighbors, your pastor. They're not specialists. And if you've got a cardiac problem, you'll see a cardiologist. You're not going to go to them. So do the same thing for your children.
Thank you, Dr. Agar. I have one question for you that a parent asked me. And the question was, if my school is not fulfilling the needs of my child, what recourses do I have to request or ask a transfer to a different school, especially when the parent, if you will, has lost faith in the school?
Gosh, that's a difficult one. There's a transfer office. And you can always request a transfer. But when you do, you need to be aware of the fact that you probably have to transport your child yourself. Because if the child is going to another school because of something that doesn't have to do with the school system, transportation is not going to be provided. So yeah, you can request a transfer, you've got to give reasons, and if it's approved, you will have to transport your child. Now, children who are homeless, we've got homeless children, and they may be staying with relatives in DC or wherever, and the school system would provide transportation for them. But if it's just that, you've asked for transfer to another school, you can get a transfer, but not with transportation. The thing is, I was going to say, try to meet with the principal or whatever, try to work at whatever concern you have, but then if you've lost confidence, that probably isn't going to do any good. And it's a shame that you would have gotten to that point. That's why it's important that as soon as you have a concern, you address it. And the thing is, you've got to be assertive, because I have seen situations in which some parents are treated in a certain way and others aren't, because they know the others are going to have an attorney or an advocate or whatever. So you've got to be assertive.
Okay.
I have one specific question, and probably you could elaborate that. I am a father of a 10-year girl. She was diagnosed with autism when she was 2.5, about 2.5. The struggle that we have in the public education system is the student to teacher ratio. For the last 3 years, probably 2 years, my daughter went to one of the public schools, and recently they transferred her to another public school. This is based on the school system restructuring program, nothing to do with us. And then what we have is the student to teacher ratio is 13, and probably even higher. And this situation doesn't help students with autism. And if I speak particularly about my daughter, you have to have at least 2 to 3 prompts for her to listen to you and take action, to function, So she's not going to learn much in that kind of environment when the teacher is running 13 kids in the classroom. This is a resource problem. And we are really struggling with this. And then we're still communicating with them. And that's one of the reasons we are considering to transfer our daughter to a private school system. But that is not an easy process, so far what we have learned. They don't easily take that kind of request. It's a very challenging process. And I don't know what is the interest of those public schools, denying the transfer process.
To another public school or to a private school?
No. The private school may require the permission granted to the student, but at the same time, the public school is not reluctant, at least I would say, to give that permission for
Okay, I think.
So we see they don't have enough resources, but they're not willing to release it, or at least cooperate to release her. That she needs a better, in terms of resources, where they can assign 4 students to each teacher. So we will struggle between these two. I'm trying to be careful in the word that I use. So
they're not representing myself, not concerned with Sandy Buses.
So we communicate with the school, but we'll be very happy to hear your opinion. How do we go through this process?
Okay, are you talking about transferring her to a private school and have the school system pay for it?
Yes.
Or you pay? Okay. That's an extensive process.
What's the correct terminology? Non-public.
Right.
Versus private. So there's 3 layers.
Yeah. So, in classes with students with disabilities, depending on how severe the disabilities are, in classes that have several students with severe disabilities you have a teacher and an aide or a teacher in two ways. And how that's determined is by the students who are in the classroom. I don't know who's in your daughter's classroom, but if you feel that she's in a school in a room that's not meeting her needs, the thing you should ask for is to have her referred to what is going to be called a more restrictive setting. And a more restrictive setting is going to mean if there is a smaller class in the school system, that would be it. If the school system doesn't have anything else, then a referral to the non-public school. I mean, and they'll fight you on it because going to a non-public school, they'll have to pay. And it costs a lot. But if that's what you want, you request it. And, and you do it in writing, not by telephone and call or anything. And the person each school has someone who's called a special education instructional specialist, SEIS. And they're housed at the main special education office. And I would call special ed, find out who the SEIS assigned to your child's school, and write your letter, email to that person, and also CC the school. Because the school alone can't do it, the SEIS has to be involved in that process. And what they typically do is collect data, report cards and all that, and refer the child to another IEP team, which is a county IEP team. And that team decides which school the child goes to. But the school alone can't do it. You have to go to sometimes if the school thinks that the child needs another school, they'll approach the SEIS. In your daughter's case, it sounds like that's not what they think. So you approach the SEIS. Call the special ed department, ask who's the SEIS assigned to your daughter's school, and you contact that person.
Let me add a perspective which is clinical. In my experience working with parents whose children's needs are not being fulfilled in the school system, can escalate it to the Board of Education in the county. If it's Montgomery County Public Schools, they can escalate it there. And there is a process actually which is cumbersome and expensive, where parents can hire lawyers who make a living doing this, which is suing the school system to place their children in the school system. There are lawyers in Montgomery County that are known. I can give you names. And if you're not satisfied with the Board of Education of your own county, you can escalate it to the state Board of Education, okay? If working through your own school system doesn't work. If the school is found at fault, they have to place them in a non-public special education setting. Montgomery County, there are a few. There's Ivy Mount, Shepherd Pride has a school, and Kennedy Krieger Institute has a school. And some kids from Montgomery County, over the years, have been bused to Baltimore, Kennedy Krieger Institute. It's cumbersome, it takes time, unfortunately valuable times are lost in the process, but there are resources and resources. Okay?
Yeah, what I wanted to say in terms of what Dr. Selassie just said, when you go to the IEP, remember I said they have to give you a booklet to student rights? That booklet tells you how to make an appeal. So if you've decided you don't want to deal with the SEIS or not, you go take a look at the booklet. It'll give you instruction on how you can make a complaint to the State Department of Education. That booklet has all of that information.
Do we have a copy of the booklet today?
Procedural safeguard.
I think I've got a link to it.
You get it on IEP meeting. Every IEP meeting you get for procedural safeguard.
Yeah.
That's what's cool.
On the resources handout, there's a link to it. a parents' rights handbook. The thing is, hiring attorneys and all that could be really expensive. So if you could go to the State Department, make a complaint. I'm working with a student now whose parent made a complaint. She listed like 7 different things she thought the county was at fault for. It turned out the state felt they were at fault in one single area. And so they had to provide like a tutor during summer and a tutor in the evening. So they evaluate the complaint, they get the paperwork from the school, and they determine what the next step is going to be. There are times complaints are made, and the school system has found that fault in every area. So then the school is being audited repeatedly, but the process at the state is fair. That's right.
I don't know what I'm just speaking. Okay, where do you start? You say your child is behind, she's not making any progress. How do you prove that? Go back to 3 IEPs, 3 years back. That did she improve? Did she make any progress on her writing, reading, math? So do you think that that's your evidence? Today, from 3 years ago to today, she hasn't made any progress. According to IDA, every year, the child has to make progress. And that's up to the school, not you. So, that doesn't happen. You go back to the school, okay, you've not providing the right education to my daughter, and every IEP shows not met, needs are not met. So the next step is to change school. So the school disagrees. You're asking for placement change there. So they will invite the people from the state, and you have an IEP meeting there to go for mediation. So during that meeting, administrative review, that's what they call it. At the administrative review, if they agree, they'll write, and it's the state that is the county that decides, not the school. So if they agree to escalate it, fine. If not, you go to mediation. So the school will sit here, you sit here, there will be a person that mediates. Then again, the school won't agree with you. They escalate to due process. Due process doesn't work, they hire a lawyer. And also at the same time, you can do a state complaint. That's the right way to go about it. State complaint.
One last thing. I think as a parent, you need to be sure that your expectations are realistic. Because I have seen cases where parents will say, my child isn't making any progress, or this is what I expect, and I'm not seeing it. And I pull the child's folder, and I look at it, everything. And I realize that, the progress is going to be extremely slow, and it's unrealistic to expect a child to be at this level. And I said to talk to the parents, they don't always accept that. But you've got to have realistic expectations. You said your child has autism, and autism can run the gamut from high functioning, gifted, to low functioning. So take a look at your child's reports, evaluation reports, and see if you can get a sense from them what is expected. You say you've got to ask the child several times to do something before she responds. That could be attention, it just could be that the child is slow processing information and needs that repetition. Having realistic expectations is something you need to give some thought to.
It's a fair point. My concern is they're not putting enough resources. She cannot really benefit from when you have 13-to-1 student to teacher. There's no way, because we deal with them on a daily basis. We instruct her to do pick up a few things. That doesn't happen unless I try 3-4 times. How could the teacher give her enough time when he has 13 students to deal?
Does your daughter have an IEP or a 504?
She does. So for me, there's not enough resources. That's the whole reason.
So I think to go back to what Azib was saying, the IEP is supposed to put down the targets, the objective targets that should be achieved. by the next IEP meeting, which was every 6 months, if I'm correct. So if they're putting down as if the objectives are being achieved, and you know, your daughter, that those goals are not being achieved, I think you have the right to question, okay? And to disagree, and not to sign the IEP. If they're fulfilling her needs, it means the setting is not appropriate. So you have to use the data they have to boost and support the case, okay? And then if the school within which you are trying to give service is not fulfilling the need, you escalate it to the county board and try and find an advocate. There are what they call advocates, people who may have worked for the school system in the past, or people who have special qualifications to be advocates. So I think it's, if you're convinced, use the system to try and achieve and accomplish what you're trying to do. Okay? So I think we're at the halfway mark. Before we move to the next speakers, I would like to summarize what we've been saying in Tigrinya. So was Medhane ዘለና ቀጻላይ ኣብ ከም ሕጂ ጌርና ዝነበርና ነዚ ህዝብና ብዛዕባ ኣውቲዝም እቲ ኣቀዲምካ ዳያግኖሲስ ምርካብ ክንደየናይ ኣገዳሲ ምዃኑ ከምኡ ከዓ ስሒብካ ከዓ እቲ ዘድሊ ኣገልግሎት ምርካብ ክንደየናይ ኣገዳሲ ምዃኑ ክንገልጽ ኢልና ኢና መጺና ብዚ ተሓሒዝና ከዓ ኣብዚ ከባቢ ኒያሚባን ዘለዋ ክልተ ዓበይቲ ካውንቲታት ፕሪንስ ጆርጅስ ካውንቲን መንጎመሪ ካውንቲን እየን ሕጂ ክትዛረብ ዝጸንሐት ሓፍትና ካብ ፕሪንስ ጆርጅስ ካውንቲ ፓብሊክ ስኩል ሳይኮሎጂስት ብሓፈሹ ናይ 40 ዓመት ተመክሮ ዘለዋ ኣብ ናይ ቤት ትምህርትን ኣብ ሜንታልን ክትከውን ከላ እቶም ቤት ትምህርቲ ክገብሮ ዝኽእሉ ኣገልግሎት መሰል ናይ ወለዲ ከመይ ከም ዝኾነት ሕጂ ከዓ ቀሪባ ዝነበረቶ ከዓ ብሓፈሽኡ ናዳ ወለዲ ፍሉይ ሓገዝ ዘድልዮም ቆልዑት ዘለኩም እቲ ዘድሊ ኣገልግሎት እቲ ዘድሊ ትምህርቲ ከይረኽቡ ከለዉ ደቂ ኣንስቲ እንታይ ክንገብር ከም ዝኽእል ነዚ ሕጊ ተጠቒምና ማለት እዩ መሰልና ደቅና መሰልና ክሕልወና እቲ ኣነ ቁሩብ ኣቐዲመ ዝተዛረብክዎ እቲ ኣውቲዝም ዝበሃል ኩነታት ምስ ቆልዑት ምስ ዕድሚኦም እናማዕበሉ እናዓበዩ ክመፅኡ ከለዉ ዝገጠም ናይ ስነ ባህሪ ስነ ኣእምሮ ካልእ ከዓ ዝርእይዎ ምልክታት ርኢኻ ከመይ ጌርካ ኣቐዲምካ ሓገዝ ምርካብ ከም ዘድሊ ደቅና ሒዝናዮም ናብ ፔዲያትሪሽን ክንከይድ ከለና በብግዚኡ ኣበይ መፂኦም ከለዉ ክርድኡ ከስተውዕሉ ኣለዎም ብፍርሒ ከዓ ብ18 4 ወርሒ እቶም ቆልዑት ኣበይ በፂሖም ካብ ምግምጋም ኣድላዩ እቲ ዳያግኖሲስ በዝሒ ዳያግኖሲስ ኣብ 3 ዓመት ምስ በፅሖ ክግበር ክእል እዩ ነዚ ከዓ ኣብ ዝኾነ ከተማ ይኹን ኣብ ዝኾነ ካውንቲ ዝነብር ሰባት ቻይልድ ፋይን ዝበሃል ሰርቪስ ኣሎ ባዕልና ደውልና ሪፈራል ጌርና እዩ ወለይ ጓለይ ከምዚ ቁሩብ ድኻም ተርኢ ኣላ ቁሩብ ፍሉይ ዝበለ ባህሪ ተርኢ ኣላ እሞ ክትሪኡ ናይ ኣገልግሎት ክረክብ ኢልኩም ክትሓቱ መስፈትኩም እዩ እሞ ከዓ ትምህርቲ ምስ ጀመሩ ክግበር ዝኽእል ስፔሻል ኤዱኬሽን ይኹን ኢንፋንትስ ኤንድ ቶድለርስ ዝበሃል ሰርቪስ ኣሎ ኣብኡ ጀሚሮም IEP ወይ ኢንዲቪጁዋላይዝድ ኤዱኬሽናል ፕላን ዝበሃል ረኺቦም እቶም ቆልዑት ብዘድልዮም ኩነታት ትምህርቶም መሰሎም እናተሓለወሉ ይኸዱ ክእሉ እዮም እዚ ኣውቲዝም ዝበሃል እናበዝሐ መፅእ ኣሎ ሕጂ በዚ ዘለናዮ እዋን ኣብ 37 ቆልዑት ሓደ ኣብ 8 ዓመት ዕድሚኦም ኣውቲዝም ኣለዎም ኢሉ እዩ ዝግመት ቅድሚ 2-3 ዓመት ካብ 44 ሓደ ቆልዓ እዩ ነይሩ ኣብ ዝተፈላለየ ከባቢ እቲ ዳያግኖሲስ ክበዝሕ ክእል እዩ ኣብ ከተማታት ዝነብሩ ሰባት ዝያዳ ይረአይ ዘይኮነሲ እቲ ምዕባለ ህልው ክኸውን ፔዲያትሪሽን ይኹን ኣብቶም ኮሚኒቲ ንቐዲምካ ሓገዝ ምርካብ ኣገዳሲ እዩ because እቲ ናይ ሞት መጀመርያ 3-4 ዓመታት ሓገዝ ተረኺቦም እቲ ናይ ምርድዳእ ክእለቶም ባህሪኦም ኮሚኒኬት ናይ ምግባር ክእለቶም ክቕየር ስለዝኽእል ግዜ ንኸይነጥፍ ኢና ኢና ሕጂ ናብ ቀጻላይ መደብና ክሓልፍ I have a distinct privilege of introducing you as a Tewahdo, who is the president of Eritrean and Ethiopian Special Needs Children here in the DMV area. It's a non-profit, parent-led organization who does a tremendous job in advocacy, education, and promotion of special needs to our communities. محج قصالي مدبنا Ethiopian-Eritrean special need communities ولدلونا ولدليخلت عند ممهر عندنا تزقبروا أقولوا تمهرتي نزل محبرسة نزلبي أقداسن قابل سبزخونة رابعون كنسمعنا أزيد محجون مسيحات تقريبا نيرانا بانا وزق ماتيريالات si alalo wan masihero lomon kapso discount business materialat hallo መጽሐፉን ለሌሎች ማቴሪያሎች ወሰዱ የተስተረፈ صباح ቤተክርስቲያን ተሰብሰበ ማለት ነው መውላደን ይፋርድ ቢላይ አለ
A lot of familiar faces. I mean, more than half of the people here I have interacted with before. I am from the Ethiopian-Eritrean special needs community. I'll tell you how we started, our history, our background, and what we do. I have a child with autism, and navigating the system, the education system, the government service system, and the healthcare system was very challenging. Earlier, someone asked what was the barrier. A lot of barrier for the parents. Denial is one of them. How about the access to resources? The language. That's a huge barrier. Where we came from, education is not like this. That's a huge barrier. We respect elders. We don't talk about teachers or principals. That's where we're coming from. So we sit in the Alem meeting and talking back to the teacher, oh, what will she do to my son tomorrow? That's our worry. So we're coming from a completely different background. So there's a lot of barrier in our country, but let me go here. So because of my son, because of all those barriers, it was challenging to raise my child. So I decided with people like me and people who do not have children with disabilities, but who have a heart for our kiddos. As if she's part of that first founding members. Selam, who has a child with special needs, autistic child like me, and other people. We started this organization to help, to reach out, to close the gap, to transfer what we have, the information we have, the resources we have, sometimes in your own language, sometimes like, I don't speak Tigrinya, she goes like, back there. Yeah. She always calls me. We communicate. She goes like, I think English. Because she doesn't, I forget, like, I feel like she can speak American. I speak in American. Because like, no. Amharic, English, I think English. She goes like that. She always comes to our programs. So, to help you, that's why we started this organization. Our organization has 3 BCBAs, special education teacher, myself, my degree is in education, and on top of that I'm an advocate, on top of that I'm an IEP consultant. So with all of this and other parents who are not here today, fighters, advocate parents in our group. So all of those people, 9 of us together are serving. It's not only me, usually you see me. We are a non-profit organization. We became a non-profit organization in January 2009. history. I always want to talk about her. It's not me who started ESLC. Yes, I am the founder of ESLC. But before me, there was a mother who was called Alpha. She's a nurse. She started it in her basement. Then people started coming and she didn't know what to do. She invited us. And that's how it started. Then we became an organization, and our vision is all about the Ethiopian-Eritrean people, educating them, getting resources to them, access to services, government services, respite care, waiver. Where do we find it? Government administration. How do we apply there? We need transportation. We need services in the school system. So we help parents get those resources in their own language or in English. That's what we do. We help kids from age 0, if the parents contact us, to age 28, 29. Right now, I think the oldest we have is 29. But we can go to 35, 46, or 90. It doesn't matter. Age is a number. So we help. So what is, what is the problem as a community we face? I'm not going to go into details, but language barrier, access to resources, emotional and social support for our kiddos. We want them to have meaningful engagement in the community. That's our goal. It's not just the school system. Are they having meaningful engagement in the community? So we try to help the parents get those services, whatever is available in their community. We work on that, and the other one is earlier, Matama mentioned that early diagnosis. There's a huge gap between the ages of the children who are diagnosed, and currently in Montgomery County, they contacted me to tell me in the classic autism class, most of the kids are Ethiopians. Why? Because they don't get early intervention. We hold back. We want to think about it, consent with our family members, and all of that, we're taking away from the kids' diagnosis. So with all that, I don't want to make you know what kind of services do we provide. Earlier I mentioned it. You come to our organization or come to our website at www.eeslc.org. All the services we provide are there. You know what? I was not looking. That's why I couldn't connect. Sorry. It was so blurry. Is this for reading? Yes. Okay. So the services we provide a monthly in-person meeting where parents come with their children. The children are cared for by volunteers, and we invite different guest speakers like Dr. Medhane, and guest speakers like advocates in Montgomery County, from Parents Place of Maryland, lawyers, teachers, CBAs. Those are all our guest speakers where parents get one-on-one interaction with these guest speakers. The other one is the second Tuesday of the month. Always we have IEP Q&A. You have a question, second Tuesday of the month, we are there to answer your questions. If you have a question, the second Tuesday of the month, is virtual? It's virtual. Virtual. And we have the fourth Tuesday of the month, we have BCBAs, 2 BCBAs, Debre-Selam, to answer behavioral questions and ABA questions. For youth with disability, we have social skills program on Mondays and Thursdays. And we have cultural arts program where they learn their culture through arts. That's on Saturday. And now recently we started technology and peer-to-peer mentoring. That's once a month again. And the parent company, yes, that's huge. Or you come to drink Ethiopian coffee online. It's your coffee. It's virtually. We pick all kinds of topics, like we didn't bring it here. Are you struggling with puberty? Your kids are growing, they're 12 years old, 13 years old, starting 11, girls and boys. So we address those kind of issues with professionals, and parents say that whatever is troubling them, concerning them, without any judgment. There's no judgment. Nobody's a doctor, nobody's a nurse or any professional. We are all there as parents, sharing our lives. So, of the month, parent to parent. Are you worried about the milk prices going high? It can be anything. Is it your husband? Is it your wife you want to talk about? Come, just a venting session. We have that. That's the third Tuesday of the month, a venting session. There are dads, moms, grandparents, whoever is willing to attend, we are open. More than that, we have a big heart to help the community. For that, we have free phone consultation. They can call, 15 minutes call, but it never ended at 15 minutes. It can go up to 30 minutes. They can schedule, and any one of you can schedule and talk one-on-one. The other one is we have office now. If you schedule and you want us to fill out forms, for some parents, PDA forms, school forms, you're struggling to fill out the forms, we help with that too. Respite care forms. So we fill out those forms, we help with that, you schedule, and you come to the office, and we work on that.
She mentioned early diagnosis. The other thing, both for kids with disabilities and without disabilities, the kinds of things children are exposed to outside of school is important. And that's why I've put together something, a handout there, that's free and low-cost enrichment activities. And they're important because when I test students, I see the results of what they've been exposed to outside of school, because my tests don't measure academic kinds of information. You know, and whatever you expose them to outside of school carries over. You start it when they're young, it prepares them for kindergarten. That's why I've got some handouts there of how you prepare your child for school in a variety of areas. So even if your child has a disability, the things, the activities you engage with your child, they make a difference.
I have a question. Don't mind.
Sure, go ahead. Can you hear me? Is it working?
My question is, how are we doing as a community? Is there more turnout with regards to autism and your services specifically? Are you starting to see more people coming? I looked earlier, I came early, so the seats were empty, and now I love to see everybody here, so the seats are full, which is so wonderful. But are you seeing, what is the progress that we're making as a community when it comes to parents asking and seeking your services? What is that looking like?
It's very alarming.
The rate is alarming. Under people. Well, I know that the number of people seeking care is alarming, but you're in the last one.
I will tell you this. I was going to mention it, but it slipped my mind. Right now, allotments in the Habesha community. Allotments. It's unbelievably high. Last weekend alone, 3 kids were allowed, and they were found in major intersections. In Silver Spring, one kid, Portsmouth and East West Highway. That's where one were found.
Eloping from home and from school.
Eloping from home, and parents not reporting it to police. So police officers calling me in the middle of the night has become common.
I'm the one who brought the kid to my school. On East
So
West Highway.
I want you all here, like most of you here, you are here because you needed this information. I want you to reach out. Together we are stronger. I want you to reach out to other people you know that who are in denial. We all have to work on this together. It's very alarming. A child passed last June. Ethiopian child passed last June. There were 21 kids allowed. Out of 21, 11 were Ethiopian-Eritrean. This past weekend alone, 3 kids. So they have fear of the police. They don't want the police. But it's a major problem. Montgomery County now is working with ESNC. I skipped that one too. Dr. Matama knows about this. They say, what's the problem? Nowadays we see severe kids in our programs, and most of them are Ethiopians and Eritreans. I went to this school. They have middle school in Rockville. 2 of them are Eritreans, 6 of them are out of 14 kids or 13 kids. 6 of them are Ethiopian, 2 of them are Eritreans. This is a classic autism program in one big middle school. What does it study? Almost half the population in the school in the classic autism are Ethiopians or Eritreans.
So then I have a follow-up question. Are you working with the police department, Montgomery Police Department to?
Yes. Okay. Yes. And we invited them once already. The turnout was good. So many people attended, and they are asking me to come again in November 29th. I gave them, if you are available, if they want to come in person.
One more question, I'm sorry. And then with regards to Eritrean Ethiopian providers that could help with diagnosis and recommendations. I'm new to the DMV area, but I'm getting to know and learn all the resources that we do have internally within our community. And so do you know, is that a barrier as well? Not having enough providers to...
They are providers. Like we work with Georgetown Hospital. In children's, we are very close. And sometimes I send people to the please diagnose this child before it's too late. That kind of relationship I have with most of the doctors because I took their leadership in neurodevelopmental training. So they work with me. When that child diagnosed, they contact me. And there's a doctor who's working Mary Clinic. Most of you may be aware of Mary Clinic. She's Ethiopian. And there's another doctor, Maaza. They are all working together, but parents, they get the diagnosis and they go home. They don't come to us. Now, children, when they diagnose Habashakis, they give them my contact. Very few are contacting me. Kennedy Krager, when they diagnose, they give them my contact. Very few contact. They go, sleep on it 2 years, 3 years, and they come.
Okay, so then it makes me think that we need parental mentorship of each other to say, come, which is what I had in Dallas when my son was diagnosed at the age of 5 with autism. The SU was my parent that pulled me in. We were both RNs at the same hospital. I had no idea that she was the parent that would be the one to save me and save my son. So I'm going to stop there because I don't want to get emotional. But I do feel like we need mentorship within the parents to help each other because there are ones that have already done it. We've been there. We've been in your shoes. So helping as parents and nothing more, you know? And as community members, of course.
Sharing our stories.
Sharing our stories, which we don't talk openly about our struggles. That is something that it's a cultural barrier that we need to overcome. Thank you.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank you for your willingness and concern to help our community with the special needs. And second, I would like to ask your office, the one on the car, 914 Silver Spring Avenue, which days is open and from which time to which time, because it's not in the car.
Yes.
At least at this moment we cannot bring every question and we cannot find the answer. But we pass a message that there is such an office to help for such special needs. And even here we gather like this once in a gloom every 2 months, 3 months, but the office is functioning every day. We can refer people who have the need for it. That's the one. Oh, and he said every Tuesday, the first Tuesday of a month, we are there to help. He said, where is it, here or?
Oh, it's all virtual. If you see, you can scan the QR codes for all the programs, they are there.
Okay,
So
thank you very much.
And
That's my question. That's about the office. Is it open Monday to
the
Friday?
office is open on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The rest of the days I work from home. But if people call me and have an appointment, I will open the office.
Okay. Anyway, with that telephone call also,
Oh, yes.
I have attended many volunteer works in such a meeting, they give you the card, they give you their name, but when you call them, not
Don't
all of
answer.
them
Text
respond.
me, I answer.
So I hope it will be the same with us.
Text me.
Thank you.
Text, please. I prefer text. That's a good one. He's right.
Just a quick piggyback question on what she said regarding the 911. Last year there was a woman who called 911 needing assistance when the child was running around downtown Silver Spring, Colesville. 911 did not help her, and she was going through a mental breakdown trying to catch the child. Finally, they ran into a dead end. She was able to do it, but they did not help. Is there another number to call? Someone that can assist you? Because most people just look at you as kind of free.
211 is even if you have a child.
Like in crisis, that's what I mean.
Yes. So 211 is another one. They support you. Like if you have a child with emotional disturbance and you cannot handle the child, you call 211. So 211 also gives that help.
Definitely communities needed there.
I thought we need a community crisis line. We are too many in this area, so we need to develop that.
The day that child got lost, that's what I felt like. I told if they have a child, I wish I didn't come, but the French people came to support us.
Mike,
Okay.
I thank you for everything you do. There's a lot of older kids who did not see this opportunity when they were growing, and now they're adults and suffering from all kinds of problems. Sometimes, like I'm permanent right now, and when I work in the ED, I see a lot of Habesha youngsters. In the emergency room in the hospital, there is an expert which assesses them and connects them to a rehab from their addiction, from their drinking. But we don't know which one it is that came first. Is it the mental health or the addiction that came? So all that program does is if they volunteer to self-admit to rehab. A lot of times they do not know that they have a problem. They would never admit that they have a problem, including the parents if they accompany them that I see. So what do we need to do to convince the person if it's in volunteer basis? You cannot force them unless they do something very under their threat to themselves or to others. That's the highlighted question. But what do we need to convince them? Where do we start to convince them? Or do you help also adults? Because a lot of Eritrean community children that didn't get this service when they were younger, or they were mediocre or okay in school, they performed okay, but now they are suffering from something that was listed untreated. Also, like stigma that my child is not, he doesn't need medication, that you have to stay away from the medication. This is what you get in our community. So, do you also provide resources to who are now adults, but they went through this system and they fell through the cracks?
A very good question. That's where we want to expand to. Mental health, CBT training. How are we going to help these kids? Last time there was a mother here who said she told her son was okay. He turned 19 without getting any services and now she regrets it. So majority of the time, the parents don't know or they're in denial and the kids grow out of school when they were not supposed to grow out of school at the age of 18. They could have stayed in the school system up to 21, they transferred to government program services, and they will be safe for the rest of their lives. Because of the parents not knowing or denial, now the kids are separated. Oh, my boy is 20 years old, he's not getting any service, but he cannot go to college. So that time has gone. The child was supposed to transfer from the school system to the government system. that didn't happen. So right now, we don't have anything for those kids. I'll be honest with you. Most of the time, I consult the parents, talk to the parents, contact the DDA, apply DDA, appealing many times because the kid was supposed to transfer directly from school. Now DDA is putting them in waitlist. That waitlist can take 20 years. So for that not to happen, we have to train parents early on.
So, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. We're so happy of these conversations. This is what we've been looking for. But in the interest of time, I would like to move on, but we'll come back and give you an opportunity to ask, okay, at the end. But just to piggyback on what, Azeb was saying, there are high-stake activities that an organized mass can do, and that is accessing resources, okay? Just to give you a few examples, I think Montgomery County Public Schools, for example, establishing a task force specifically looking about children of Ethiopian-Eritrean descent having autism, and that is because parents have been asking and advocating, so they're willing to establish a special task force. Okay. On a different note, we're trying to approach stakeholders, elected officials, to provide support and association, including grants, to the organization that is the ESNC that does tremendous work, so they can expand their work. The networking is very important, supporting each other is very important, exchanging information is very important. And for those who are following these events on the social media, hopefully you do the same in your respective areas. And even networking among different geographic locations, I think, will be important. We know that when a leader in this major task via out of Dallas, Texas. So this is to serve the community. So we're so appreciative, and we'll do more of this. The interest of the older children, as they get older, what happens to them? That's a topic by itself. And maybe we'll do, if the interest is there, we'll do another one. The same goes to mental health, adolescent mental health. What do we do when there's a denial, and whether it's the parents or the children? So this will be another topic. We promise we'll do this. But I will move on to our next speaker, who's been very patiently waiting, and that will be Azeb Al-Haya, who is an educator in Montgomery County Public School, as I said, one of the major public school systems here in America. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. As I said, I'm a special education teacher in Montgomery County. I did 6 years in DSC public schools, so I have experience in DSC public schools and 23 years in Montgomery County. Come March, I will be 30 years teaching special education. And I've never had 13 students by myself to answer the questions. I always have someone in my class. So I don't know how to talk. So my, can you hear me? Okay, you can hear me. Okay.
Next.
Because most of some of my part is already discussed, so I'm trying to talk about my part is my topic is IEP process, and some of the things are already answered, and because of time, I'm just gonna go over the process. What is an IEP? So once the child is evaluated, the next step is found eligible for special education. The next step is to develop the IEP. So the IEP meeting is scheduled. The IEP meeting, so usually as a parent, your concern is, okay, I cannot have, I have another appointment in December for the service providers that you can meet. So it has to be decided where the meeting will be. Do you want it to be in person, which I usually recommend in person, but nowadays, and now we can have it. You can have, if you want virtual, you can have virtual. If you want it in person, you can have it in person. It has to be done with a commonly agreed place. It's usually at the school, but if not, or if the parents want to do virtual or on the phone, they're allowed to do that. Who is going to be in the meeting? The person is you, the most important person, our parents. Can the IEP go on without the parents? Could, because the student the service has to be provided, but it's very difficult to do IEP without the parents' participation. Who else is going to be in the IEP meeting? If your child goes to a general school, regular school. I work in a special school, so we do not have a special education, general education teacher in my school. Some of children may go to a private special school. There are no general education teachers, but if your child goes to a school, the general education teacher should be there. If your child receives services like speech services, OT, they should be in the meeting. Let's say they are not able to attend that meeting, you can, and you really want to see them, you have the right to change the meeting date. You say, okay, I want the speech therapist or I want the OT to be there, so I don't want to go without the meeting. You can change it, or you can say, okay, let's go ahead and have the IEP meeting, and I need another meeting with the specialist or the relative service provider. What is the purpose of the IEP? The IEP is the individual education program, is to design a program for individual students. That is has to be based on the data that was collected, observation that was done, assessment that the teachers did, work samples, parent inputs, and so on. So everything in the meeting. So okay, let me go back. Sometimes you receive the IEP drafts. Some counties, Colmar County has to give you 5 business days. The draft has to come. Some counties, I don't know, 2 days. Is the federal? Okay. It's 5 business days to receive the draft. You can look at the draft, but it doesn't mean that has to be. You can review it and come and say, okay, I do not agree with this goal, I do not agree with this, I don't understand this. You can ask questions at the meeting. Some parents do not want to have, they want to be involved in the writing the goals. It takes so much time if we sit together and write the goals, each goals at the meeting, but the parents are right when they decide to have the goals written in person. The reason you take the draft is to look at it and get an idea, and you can question. If there is something you look at and you do not agree, you can highlight it, come to the meeting and ask, I know my child doesn't do that at home, or my child could do this at home. You're right, this is not what you could do. I have a problem with that. Okay, what does the IEP look like? The first one is school information. The first page is this. IEP document is very intimidating. If your children have IEP, it could be 34 pages or it could be more. So the first page is usually the student and school information. You don't have to worry about. The next thing is the present level of performance. The first present level of performance is where is your child now? What can he do? What is his strength? What are his needs? Does your child have, let's say math, can he count? Maybe counting is his strength, but addition could be his needs. How about his alphabets? Maybe he can tell all his alphabets, but he cannot write, or he has his come to class on time, but maybe he lacks all the strength for each area, academic area, for social emotional area, for speech area, the strength, or for OT, whatever service you child needs, the needs and strength are listed. And the next one will be developing the goals. And I hear a lot of parents asking these questions. What are goals? And earlier you have to be reasonable what you want your child to learn. Don't worry about this. Yeah, I'm skipping a lot of things. So goals are, each child has an IEP goal, and under each IEP goal it has objectives. What is an IEP goal is written statement that your child should know by the end of the year. So if your child knows how to add without single digit, maybe for next year, his goal, we want him to learn how to add double digits. If he knows his alphabets, maybe you want him to read 2 words, or the teacher will write what they think he should know. And under the goal, there will be objectives. There will be usually 4 objectives. That is what the student will learn for the whole year. And next year, when you come to the IEP, quarterly you receive progress notes of so-and-so is making progress in this area, so-and-so is not making a progress. If your child, see your child's IEP goals, if he's not progressing, another IEP can be called. You can call another IEP, or as a teacher, I can call an IEP saying, okay, your child came with this goal. There is no way he will meet this goal, we need to change it. You can come to a meeting. It doesn't have to be a full IEP meeting, but there will be a meeting to change the goals. Let's say your child already meet the goal by October. There will be another meeting to change the goals, to write new goals. The other that your child, the IEP includes is related services. It could be speech and language, it could be psychological counseling, occupational therapy, it could be transportation, whatever the child needs to be included in the IEP. And the person, if it is a speech goal, is the speech service, the speech therapist or pathologist will deliver the services, and the same way with academic and the other at the end of the year, they will evaluate and say, okay, the child made the goal, now let's go to this one. That the most things that I know parents really fight is time. Sometimes the speech therapy will cut the time. From now on, so and so will get 45 minutes a week, and parents say, no, my child need more than that, and they go back and forth. That might be addressed in the IEP meeting. Sometimes therapists and occupational therapy may need to say, okay, I'm going to dismiss him from getting the services, parent disagree, that can be addressed also in the meeting. And they will have to come with the data to prove that the child needs less services, or can be discharged, or can get more services. In addition to that, there's accommodation and modification. That means your child can get extra time to finish his work. He can get frequent breaks. For 45 minutes is long for a child to sit down. Maybe every 10 minutes he can do something and take a break. That will be included, should be included in the IEP plan. Sitting accommodation, maybe noise and other people distracting. Maybe the child has to be sitting up front or away from other distractions. Schedules and presentation. Maybe he needs a different kind of presentation for the specific class. Modification is also another thing that is usually if your child goes to a regular classroom, if the science teacher gives, or the English teacher gives 2 pages of assignment, your child can get, if he has a modification in his IEP, he can get like 1 page assignment. Or if if other people get, there are modified stories and books, he can use those instead of what the typical general age are using with the child modification. In addition to that, there are, if your child is close to 14, there will be a transition plan. What is the child going to do? Is he going to college? Is she going to college? Or is she going to seek independent living, employment? What kind of plan can we plan for the child to achieve the plan, to the goal? So this also be listed what the needs and the strength of the child and what he can do currently and what he will benefit from. It begins at age 14. It will help prepare after school or post-secondary goals. The next thing is usually summer school, they call it, but it's called extended school year. The IEP document includes the extended school year. That is not the summer school, they don't want to call it summer school, but as you're trying to get more services, continue to go to school, I think it's 4 weeks, some places 6 weeks. How does your child qualify? Some schools don't have any problem, they qualify everybody. Some schools will fight not to give students extended school year. So how does a child qualify for school year? If you think your child has 2 months or 70 days, if he stays home, he will forget what he learned. You say, okay, he will regress. I know from the past experience, my child needs a continuation. Or if he is he's starting to learn a new thing, and that 2 months of it will disrupt his learning, you can say, okay, now my child is learning or the teacher said, no, he's learning new skill. If he goes on break, he will forget. So if he qualifies for one of the listed qualifications, he can get an ESY summer school. Okay, after you go through, sit to the beginning and talk all about this. The last part is usually the e-learning that she mentioned, the least restrictive environment. They will not tell you, the school will not tell you, your child belongs here, or your child need to go somewhere else before they have to go through all the steps to see the changes, the growth, if there's regression. Is this the right placement? If it is the right placement, if everybody agrees, that's when you say, okay, I agree, this school is my child's this restrictive environment. Or you say, no, I do not agree. That's when you pick up the question. No, I don't think my child belongs to this school because he's not getting this, he's not showing progress, or he's showing progress and he needs to be challenged, or he needs to be in a more restricted. He should be in autism class instead of this class, or he should get a chance to be with the other general ed students than be in a separate school. School systems have their own needs, but this is the child can go to general education, go to certain classes, go to with his peers. He can take just math with he can take his math class with general gen ed class and then come for reading. Or he can take all of his classes with gen ed but can get other services out of gen ed. That is one. Or sometimes the child will have all his academic classes in special class, but will go and have arts and PE and those elective with the other non-disabled peers, they call it. Or he can have a self-contained classroom. It's in a regular school, but his class is separate. His self-contained is just with special need class. Or it could be separate school, completely separate school, there are general education students around him. It could be outside the school district, like Kennedy Krieger was mentioned, it's a private, or Regnant is private. That could be the placement for the child. Or there are some children, because of their severity of disability, they cannot go to school, so there's going to be homeschooling. The teacher can go to the house and teach them to get services at their residence or in the hospital. And that is when it's the placement, and the most sensitive part is the placement, I think. That's when it's mentioned at the end. So when you get to the IP, when you get the draft, you will know where the placement is. Usually it's the same place, but it could change. And also, a child can be also, if the child has a behavior issue, severe one, that it cannot be managed by the teacher in the classroom. There is something called behavior intervention plan. Maybe especially kids who develop a lot, we have a plan. Why are they developing? Why are we seeing this behavior? And when they will collect data, based on the data, they will have a plan, and it's called the BIP, or behavior intervention plan. The IEP document includes intervention plan, and also assistive technology. Does he need a device to talk? Does he need a device to do his homework? Does he need a computer to word processor to do his homework? What kind of what do they call it? Argumentative device that help him speak. That would be also included in the IP as an assistive technology. And then every 3 years, at least every 3 years, there will be a re-evaluation. So they'll have the whole testing done by the professional, like the educational, the psychological, the speech will be done every 3 years. Okay, that is, that's just to give you an idea of what an IEP contains.
Just one thing with the 3-year evaluation. Years ago, the 3-year evaluation consisted of all the tests being done all over again. But now the law has changed, and now what happens, every 3 years you have the reevaluation meeting. And you look over everything, the child's progress, and you decide if new assessments are needed, and if they are needed, in which areas. So sometimes in 3 years you find you don't need to test again, or you only need to test in specific areas. And I think that changed in 2010, something. So you don't automatically test every 3 years. And the law applies countrywide. So it's what we're telling you is not just for Maryland. It's countrywide.
Just to mention one thing. If your child is 16, if they graduate at 21, it's 18, make sure you have updated everything, because adult agencies want an updated IEP, updated, if not, you have to do it out of pocket, I think. So it's better to have an updated course, evaluation before your child goes to adult services.
Okay, thank you, Isaac. That was very informative. It's for a reason we hosted this event today. Today is September 28th. It's 4 weeks into the new school year. We wanted to inform and empower parents as the new school has begun. That's why we spent more time in the education part. Okay? Moromi Konina Nazamada Batalina Messina Zelana. Jumbo Egero, Waledi, then the Lay Habitat information of Rockwomen, Jamir Nabash, the information I want to follow, then it's like a member I got it. And even the Hackett, I guess the Gerard is a bit of a half an hour, the Gam Coffee Lazala, Salam Habas the Bahal, Salam Muladit, special need come by ADA. Gabriel Gab Hadis, the Naranayo, Sanhana, have Mushtabit intervention, a school based intervention, now. IEP, occupational therapy, speech and language therapy, كمحاضر كله physical therapy كافي جدا كثير لكن DebreSelam ABA therapy كايكم ولا كنسميها لأننا تكسبوا في المجتمع.
child find حيلنا account حيلنا ولا كمزي يحلوا اللوي كم تبغوا بزيادة من جل بدينا ممكن كنا في county child find بعد السطر diagnosis يجيبونه تي diagnosis تي ناي activate في توت راح يبرز دعمنا ناي ABA intervention نفرق بعد دعمنا ناي ABA treatment نفرق ناي doctor okay زلنا pediatrician scientists, psychologists, come with that. So we have to make sure that ABA treatment from the point of diagnosis at the end of that. Okay. All right. Okay. What is ABA? ABA تايو نماني ستركب كأنتاينا في تقريبا لنا كاب ABA تاينا نركب لمتاينا في early intervention لكل شعب كان على مجال استقاء تي treatment plan اللي نحن نزجاجه لنا تي تايو يكون تقبل تي treatment plan تاينا زعبيان ذلك. Applied behavior analysis ABA science no existence أنا عندنا كاب 1960s جميرو زرعوا نجاري science social science أنا كم psychology أنا it's repeating but it's more science. هجي أنت إذا قبل أب سب أب بهرتنا the environment zero relationship you ناتنا بهرنا ويكون سخن زجاجة ويكون كودل زجاجة بهرتنا the relationship configure لا جبرنا هنا وي زيد اللي بهرتنا كنكنس ويكا زيد صدق اللي تاعتنا نقدر نستخدم مهرنا الأمريكي تقولين هاي صبوتة ده كنا ناوي نشكع دبي Are you good? Okay. All right. Thank you. ABA autism راحنا مبزح زي autism سلسلة autism نمبره ABA principles أكون سبز نمبره ولا كنا نحن كمان أنا بزح شجرة ستة بقولوا لك ABA principle كده كم فعلا يجوز أبو بقول عتلو كذبوا ده نخلينا كان treatment نحن ركب insurance نحن خفلو autism diagnosis يدي أنا يبغى كل سبب هون. Okay, so entire typing here نقول BABA communication. Okay, but نزحتو نزرع ديفا السر وكان نزرع motivation من اللغة. نزرع طيب social skills مثل ما تجيو كذا كل حين بمرأيو social skills سقع advanced level سقع نزل راب الاستقبال يحجزيو adaptive skills مالك زي نفسنا إيه محتاج شتبيت مهاري نفسها محتاج زي مثل مساسة ونجرب نمهاري
ንጥቀመሉ ቴክኒካት እዩ እንታይ ኢና ክንፅበ ዘለና ካብ ኤቢኤ አንደኛ ነገር ንኩሉ ሰብ ሓደ ዓይነት ኣኮነ ኢትስ ፐርሰን ስፔሲፊክ ነቲ ቆልዓ ተባሂሉ ዲዛይን ክግበር ኣሎ ትሪትመንት ክግበር ከሎ እና ዴታ ድሪቨን ኩሉ ሻዕ ብዴታ ጌርና ኢና ንሪኦ ሓደ ስኪል እዚ ወዲ ይመሃር ኣሎ ወይ እዚኣ ጓል ትመሃር ኣላ ወይስ እዚ ተቐይሙ ኣሎ ኣይጠቂማኒ ኢልና ንውስን ዴታ እናራእና ኢና ምክንያቱም ኩሉ ሻዕ ዴታ ክወስዱ ክንወስድ ኢና ዋና ከዓ እቲ ዋና ናይ ኤቢኤም እንታይ ጥቕሙ ነቲ ሰብ ኢንዲፔንደንት ክኸውን ክምህረሉ ሶሻሊ ቫልድ ንብሎ ማለት ንሽሙስ ኢልካ ተምህሮ ክምት እንተይኮነስ ኣብ ኮሚዩኒቲ ውሽጢስ ኢንዲፔንደንት ኮይኑ ከመይ ገይሩ ይነብር ኢንዲፔንደንት ክንገብረሉ ክንፍትን ኣለና ዳሕራይ ከዓ እቲ ትሪትመንት ኩሉ ሻዕ ጀነራላይዜሽን ዝበሃል ጀነራላይዝ ክንገብር ናይ ጀነራላይዜሽን ፕሮሲጀር ክህልዎ ኣሎ ማለት ሓንሳ ደቅና ንበል ሓደ ቆልዓ ኣነ ዝምህሮ ጥራሕ እንተኮይኑ ንሳይ ይዛረብ ንሳይ እቲ ሓደ ፈለታት ዘማህርኮ ይገብረሞ ግን ኣብ ካልእ ሰብ ከይዱ ኣይደግሞን ወይ ከዓ ምሳይ ተማሂሮ ኣብ ትምህርት ቤት ከይዱ ኣይደግሞን ስለዚ ኣብቲ ትሪትመንት ጀነራላይዜሽን ከዓ ኢንክሉድ ክኾን ኣለዎ bathroom time view, كله زي ما رقمهم نحن سنتحونا. Parent training is very very important, and don't insurance included كمان لو mandatory program parent training يوهان. In fact, at the time كنا بكتب لهم ABA رقم ورقم the parent training تقوموا بدعمي إنكار الرقم. Very very important. مكنياتهم نا ABA principles نحن تبعنا خيرنا. كله بزاف بصراحة ما عرفت مستك مسوينا ومستوعنا مدك أول سنة نايتي improvement of the success rate ولا عن الجواب. أبي إنه لو تاكل 9 therapist الذي أسرع تفضل سهلة. السنة نجايد لines نعنا نمهاري ساعتين أو بكرمسلو السود راح بكون لايقون. So parenting is very important and insurance also covers it. And then انتهى كوفي كامل مهاري مهر focus attention مهاري مهر behavioral control we can try مش الله they do عن behavioral control واللي ما الناس يمهروا جمع functional skills كله مثل مثلا ذكرنا عندنا مثل لايف كونه عندنا قلت لهم قد تكون هذا مثلا waiting لغة كله تبصر وتفينا ناتو tolerance كلهم نهار المقدمة. سلسلة مزرعة راح كيفنس functional كله نسبة للبعض تأمو يقدر كنا المقدمة. مبلغ تعلم مبلغ عليه ولا عتلو مبلغ مهار قليل. شو بيت بعده زي بيت ولا عتلو مهار. إيه اسم كلنا جايز. The only thing insurance they follow can be academic skills. Now, academic skills actually to better learning as I know, and as I heard about I thought one. Okay, push out early intervention. Number early intervention. And then I gap when I recognize have teenage type young follow is 9 person very little. ስለዚህ ቀጥፎም ናብ ዕድሚኦም ካቻፕ ክገብሩ opportunity ይመናል ብሕልፊ ኢንቴንስ ተኮይኑ 20 hours 40 hours ሰሙን ተኮይኑ ናብቲ ዕድሚኦም ዘለዎ ቆልዑት ካቻፕ ንገብሩ ይጠቕሞም ካልኣይ ከዓ the way ናይ ቆልዓ ብሬን ዝሰርሕ ሞር ንክወስድ ኣዳፕትብል ንክኸውን ኣብ ንእሽተይ ዕድሚኡ ስለ ዝኾነ early intervention is very encouraged. Does that mean ABA ኣይሰርሐን እዩ ምስ ዓበዩ ማለት ኣይኮነን ግን ንኣሽቱ ከለዉ ምስ ፒርሶም ካቻፕ ገይሮም ንምኻድ ዕድል ሂቦም እዩ ማለት እዩ ABA ክንብል ከለና ከዓ ዋን ቱ ዋን ዝወሃብ ነገር እዩ ናይ ግሩፕ ኣኾነ ኣለዎ ሓደ ሓደ ግዜ ከም ሶሻል ስኪልስ መሰለ ነገር ክነምህር ከለና ምናልባት 3 ወይ 4 ቆልዑ ጌርና ምምህር ንኽእል ኢና መብዛሕትኡ ግዜ ግን ዋን ቱ ዋን ዝግበር ትሪትመንት እዩ it's intensive ክኸውን እዩ ድሕሪ ሎንግ ተርም ማለት ንነዊሕ ግዜ ንኸዶ ነገር ግን መብዛሕትኡ ይሰርሕ እዩ especially ጽቡቕ ኳሊቲ ABA ተተረኺቡ it will definitely work and then ኣበየበ ናይ ኣብ ብዙሕ ሴቲንግ ክግበር ይኽእል እዩ ኣብ ገዛ መፂኦም ሽራብ መብዛሕትኡ ኣዴታት ትኾን ይኽእል ኦር ኣብ ትምህርቲ ቤት ከማ ክግበር እዩ ኣብ ክሊኒክ ቤስድ ሴንተር ዘለዎ ሓንሳዕ ሓንሳዕ ኣዝ ሰፖርት ኣብቲ ትምህርቲ ቤት ከሎ ንቆልዓ መፂኦም ክምህሩ ይኽእል እዮም እዚ ኩሉ ግን it depends ኣብቲ ቆልዓ ኣብ ገዛ ድዩ ሞር ቤኒፊት ትረክብ ክሊኒክ ድዩ ፕሪስኩል ድዩ ከምቲ ናይ ቆልዓ ኒድ እዩ ብዙሕ ወለድታት ሓቲቶም ይኽእል እዮም ኣብ ገዛ ይሸኒ ወላ ኣብ ክሊኒክ ዝብሉ ኣለዉ ከም ዝበልኮ ናይቲ ቆልዓ ድዩ ፎር ኤግዛምፕል ቆልዓ ኩሉ ነገሩ ይዛረብ ከም ዝደለየ ሰልፍ ስኪሉ ፅቡቕ ተረፎ ግን መሓዙት ምግባር ኣይክእልን ምስ ቆልዑት ምፅዋት ዘይኽእል ተኮይኑ ክሊኒክ ቤስድ ማዲገር ንዑ ፅቡቕ ምክንያቱም ኣብኡ ቆልዑት ኣለዉ ምስ ቆልዑት ከዓ ከመይ ጌርካ ኢኻ ፍሬንድሽፕ ትገብር ምምሃር ይቐልል ግን ኣብ ገዛ ከዓ ንሓደ ሓደ ቆልዑ ንዋን ቱ ዋን ኣቴንሽን ንምርካብ ከዓ ኣብ ገዛ እዩ ዝቐልል ብዙሕ ከዓ ቴምፒንግ ዝኾኑ ነገሮት ኣለዉ ምሽ እቲ ዝለመዶ ቲቪ ብሎ ኣዲኡ ኣቦኡ ኣብኡ ስለ ዘሎ ምስኣቶም ከመይ ገይሩ ክነብር ከም ዝኽእል ንምምሃር ኣብ ገዛ ይቐልል ማለት እዩ ስለዚ ካብ ቆልዓ ይፈላለ and then daily functional skills ከዓ ክንምህር ተኮይና ገዛ ይቐልል ምሳሌ ነብሱን ንምምሃር ተኮይኑ ነብሱን መሕፃብ ንምህሮ ቆልዓ ኣብ ክሊኒክ is not ኣይሰርሕን ኣብ ገዛ እዩ ዝሰርሕ So, بحذره كانوا خايلين because I think we've covered بزح نجارات. ABA بزح setting مش تأخذ بالك اليوم نجارها functional skills كمرة a lot of بزح سبري ولا ABA بعد كل things flash cards جرنا touch this what is this ما نطرح بيلس معنا بزح سبر الله أديتك كمان تايماني تودس بزح كن كساس تفقدر لي تعترف بستمتع أزمة لمن تعب أو لا مفيد زي سامح يبلان that's not it it's اندحر you know كنا بقول نابا كان دهن كساس كابرو برامو ناخذ ويكا يجل مسألة كيكا إذن سألي إذن غير كامل ما نتوهينا نمرو لنا نيجي وراء تحيز وطن كم تكفينا هون وراء تحيز كذا كلام it's can rule all the time إجا كن مهر كلنا there are many يعني مش عارف هذا هذا DTT بعد spiritual training بعد حنتي سكيل مهر كلنا المئة هذا نقدر manipulate يلا talk about the treatment plan first. Okay, sorry, بزعبة الاستقرار أنا كنت تزعل. أبتي treatment plan انتهي include قبل. إنتي انتهي تقدر PCBA جزانا تمنزل once we have approval جزانا منزل assessment قبل. مش نتقول على طريقهم ولا تحدد يقبرالهم تعيشوا تزرعهم لها treatment plan تتصرف. التي treatment plan عندنا نقدر goals عنهم. التي goals انتهي include تقبرالهم communication, social skills, functional skills, parent goals, the parent goals alone, and behavioral goals. زمان مش include خون عنهم. ولد كمان كنت حابة بروح اليوم نزي قولات الموزع لأن مزحت بزي we have to make sure that all are socially valid إذا نبلوزا لما نقول independent كوينو نفنفر يتأموني ويتأموني حجينا مثالي جولر مسرح تفتو عندنا تنمو والي جولر مسرح مهار اللي تبينو أبناء independent غيرو خندرانيو زي جولر مسرح ورنو السوق الريالي. So as long as independent كوينو نفتنبر زرنا تبينو تقولات communication, social skills, functional skills, behavioral goals, and parenting. أبتي treatment plan كلوا. إذا زي يقولوا insurance كمان approve by government. Okay. كذا بزوج Q&A نقبل كذا أبتي national organization بزوج زي ولا بتاعنا تونتاي. تابي CBS بتاع إسرائيل. تاجزانا every day بتاع إسرائيل. لمن يزال لمن يزي تقبرزون نحن تخوني لكم لين تقبر لمن يزال بس يسمى. Okay. التي treatment plan تتعرف BCBA تاجزات therapist and تحتاج نعطي instruction راح وسيلة توصل تسافر. سلسلة complaint تلقوا وين كان هذا نقدر ريال تجربوا نقدر تلقوا BCBA هم تزار وزاركم. كن every day treatment نتا therapist سلنا رئة بس أصل زماننا بزوج زي relationship نقبل بزحتوا لنا كاب أقرب وين يفتنوا. كن BCBA حاجة كان صاحب behavior كلهم رجعنا autism syndrome تحمل behavior زلوا حاجة نقدر communicate نقبوس زجلة سلسي نتي behavior كنا نقول في التنكلنا ناتو replacement كأخذ مهاراتنا لحد زجلة نقدر نحتاج زي كألم قرعة بين زبكي أوكي تبخير نسو بزرنا كل مهاراتنا communication component society replacement behavior ka ABA yam okay so therapist met agazana نصرح لنا كل شهر نريد نجارات نتاعو هذا BTT بعد زحمة زيادة أو ربعين كبروا but it doesn't have to be at the table. حالتي skill نقد مهر مجبرتان حالتي environment وكان instruction تهم والعاد behavior يقبر دحرا reinforcement هو. Okay. فقلنا قبرت نتي skill نقد تعبير في التهم. ممزحته بسبب عنها يبقى حتى عندما نقول جزء reinforcement لا توهابه منبر حنتنا نقبر بزح سبيحات كتير. مسؤول عنا نقبر لنا أب صبوا ABA وهاب تتقينا. تي reinforcement تي reward ميكات شل ما تروح وزلوا هذا نقدر نستمر كم يجرنا إننا لا أنسنا نخيل has to be part of it. سلسلة بزح سبيل كل شيء كل لا توهاب القانة تزود نفسها إنه بزح سبيل يحدد It's true. One is a wrong. Okay. Another method, natural environment. natural environment teaching ባህል discrete trial it's anti-skill trial natural environment training naturally ዝፈት ሆነ activity እናገበና communication ደግሞ social skills ደግሞ በቲ activity ዝፈት ማለት it's not በሃንቲ skill የሆነስ generally that activity እናገበራ ማለት ካልአይደና ኢንሲደንት አለ እሱ ከጋጥመና ሆነ ብዙ አፕሮችን ተይርከው ለምሳሌ ጋሻ መጽዩ ሁሉ አዝመጣ ይሆነ ጋሻ መጽዩ ለዚህ ጋሻ ሰላም ለወጣ እንግዲህ ታገዛሩ ተፈይዶ አንድ ነው በጣም ወደ ውስጥ ይመጣ አዎ it works. He's communicating. Incidental teaching naturally በጋጥመና አይነት እንዳገበራ ዝምሮ ነገር ይባላል። ስለዚህ እዝታት እንዳተጠቀመ አይነት ማለት ነው። ጀነራላይዜሽን አንተ በዝበርኮ نحن مستمعنا مش parent training اللي نبغانا نحن زمهرنا يسكيلات parents بقى of natural environment نخطهم بتقوموا مو generalized كهون تي skill انت مستمر بس راح يكرر ام لايف نتقابل انت generalized تقبلوا بتاعتوا زي ولا دينا حد generalized تقبلوا So just to conclude it, the rest of this therapy slide to conclude it, ABA has to be done supervised by the BCDA, the direct service, the therapist to have, even parent training, by the way, the BCDA so we have data hosts that ደግሞ በኤሌዝራ ተባይሮ feel free to ask ለተደግና ነጥሩ ይወቁል ደግሞ ለምንታይ ቪዚት ትገብሩ ይዘራል እዚስ ማስተር ገሩ ወንጌው በአሰፈ ተቀየረ ካብስ ናበይ ዘኸይድ ዝኩሉ ቫሊድ ሕቶተ እንገብሩ ዘለና generalization ናትና responsibility ማለት ናይ ወለድ ተከራምስ ማሜን ቴራፒስት ከማን ወሳሰ ፈለና ግን حالي سكيل ماستر مسكبرة كيلو مسكونة مستا ثيرابيست احنا جنرالايز كبرو كنفتن على parent participation بالدعمي على ثيرابي Thank you. I hope figured it out.
Well, Salam, thank you for such a wonderful presentation. It was very informative. مسكين ذهبت حبريتها يعني أجد داسيم أنا بعلي تبش نجران تماهير يومي عندي لنا معنتوي كاين عم سلام أنا تعليم تبيني على زهر الصحافة بتبيني على زهر بين كاين لازم هو حسيبيا دياله إن بيتروس بالإنجليش مستعمر أنا عن حسي بيومي مش عارفين يعني مو بيتروس نحا خايس غزس ግን ጭቁሩብ ታሪክ ማህነ ዘላ ብናርባሽ ብዙሕ ጊዜ ይወሰድኩ ብዛዕባ ሳይኪያትሪክ ትሪትመንት ናይዞም ቆልዑ ስፔሻል ኒድሲ እንታይ ዓትገብርኩም ሳይኪያትሪስት መጠን የኩም ማለት ምን መጀመሪያ ቆልዑ ገና ወላ ንኣሽቱ ቆልዑ ደቂ ሰለስተ ደቂ ባዕሉ ዓመት ከለዉ እንድሕር ኣብቲ ዴቨሎፕመንት ኣብቲ ምዕባሊኦም ስክፍታ ኣሎ ሓሳባት እንተሎ መጀመርያ መፅኦም ተሪኦም ኢና ዋላ ዴፊኒቲቭ ተዘይኮነ ፕሮፌሽናል ዳያግኖሲስ ይብና ኣብቲ ዘድሊ ቦታ ኣቕጦቱ ምግብር ንኽእልና ቦታ ኣውቲዝም ንብሎ ዓቕንቲ ዓንቶ ዝበልኩ ዝተፈላለየ ሌቭል ኣሎ ነበር ዋን ቱለት ፍሪካ ከምቲ ኮሚኒኬሽን ስኪሎም ናይ ምዝርራብ ወይ ናይ ኢንተራክት ንምግባር ክእለቶም እንደገና ኣብቲ ዕለታዊ መነባብሮም ሲ ኖርማሊ ፋንክሽን ክገብሩ ክንደያ ናይ ሓገዝ የድልዮም ይብል ማለት እዩ ዋን ኢዝ ማይልስ ሄድ ማለት እዩ ሕጂ ነቲ ትሪት ክንገብር ከለና እቲ ኣውቲዝም ንብሎ ነቲ ምልክታት ወይ ነቲ ሲምፕተምስ ናይ ኣውቲዝም ኣይኮንና ትሪት ንገብሮ ወይ ነቲ ኣይ ኮንታክት ወይ ነቲ ኮሚኒኬሽን ስኪል ዘይኮነስ ምስኡ ዝመፅእ ካልእ ባህርያት ምናዳ ንዕኦም ነቶም ቆልዑ ዝሃስዮም ኮይኑ ሰልፍ ኢንጀሪስ ቢሄቪየር ንብሎ ርእሶም ዝሃርሙ ኮይኖም ወይ ርእሶም ዘጓንፁ እንተኮይኖም እንደገና ንኻልኦት ዝሃርሙ እንተኮይኖም ናይ ኮፍ ምባል ክእለቶም ኣዝዩ ዝተሓተ እንተኮይኑ ከቢድ ናይ ምቃስ ሽግር ዘለዎ እንደገና ምስቲ ኣውቲዝም ተታሒዙ ዝመፅእ ካልእ ሳይኪያትሪክ ዲስኦርደርስን ኢሞሽናል ፕሮብሌምን ክህሉ ዝኽእል እዩ። ሕጂ እዞም ቆልዑት እዚኦም ካብቲ ንሪኦ ኮንዲሽናት ኦሲዲ ዝበሃል ኦብሰሲቭ ኮምፐልሲቭ ዲስኦርደር ዝበሃል ብዙሕ ኣሎ። ናይ ሙድ ዲስሬጉሌሽን ወይ ስምዒቶም ምልውዋጥ ጢፍካ ምሕራቕ ምካይ ምልውዋጥ ናይ ኤንዛይቲ ወይ ናይ ጭንቂ ክህሉ ክእል እዩ። ከምቲ ሌቭሉ ከዓ ኤዲኤችዲ ወይ አቴንሽን ዴፊሲት ሃይፐር አክቲቪቲ ዲስኦርደር ዝበሃሉን ኣሎ። ስለዚ ነቲ ኩነታት ናይ ቆልዓ ሪኢኻ እቲ ነቲ ፎሲ ሪስክ ቤነፊት ሬሽዮ ማለት እዩ እዚ ኩነታት ኣጓኒፉ ዘሎ ክንደየናይ ከቢድ ከምቲ ምኽባሉ ፎሲ ምፍታን ምስቲ ዘሎ ሪስክ ኣተሓሒዝካሲ ኣገዳሲ ዘይኮነን እዩ መጀመርያ። እንደገና ካልኦት ቆልዑት እዚኦም ኒውሮዳይቨርሲቲ ንብሎም ካብ ቁሩብ ፍልይ ከም ዘሎ ዝግላፅ ማለት እዩ። ብጣዕሚ ሴንሲቲቭ እዮም ፎሲ ኣተሓሒዝካ ማለት እዩ። ዝኾነ ፎሲ ክትቦም ከለኻ እቲ ትፅበዮ ውፅኢት ኦፖዚት ክኸውን ዝኽእል እዩ። እዚ ናይ ሜዲካል ፓራዶክሲካል ሪያክሽን ንብሎ ሪያክት ዲ ኦፖዚት ወይ ቁሩብ ከረጋግኦም ኢልካ ዝህቦም ፎሲ ዝያዳ ከንህሮ ንኽእል እዩ። ስለዚ you have to be very mindful እንደገና እቲ ዶዜጅ ክትብል ከለኻ ኣዝዩ ትሑት ዝኾነ ዶዜጅ ጀሚርካ ከከምቲ ኣገዳስነቱ ትውሰኽ ማለት እዩ። ሕጂ ክልተ ፋውስ ኣለዋ ናይ ኤፍዲኤ ኣፕሮቭ ዝኾና ኣውቲዝም ስፔክትረም ዘለዎ ቆልዑት ክንጥቀመሉ ኤፍዲኤ ኣፕሮቭ ዝገበረን እዚአን ከዓ what they call maladaptive behaviors ማለት ምስ ኣውቲዝም ተታሒዙ ዝመፅእ ዝሓሲ ባህርያት ዘጓንፍ ኮይኑ ክልተ ፋውስ ኣቤሊፋይን ሪስፔሪቶም ዝበሃላ ሙድ ስታብላይዘርስ እና አንታይሳይኮቲክስ ንጥቀም ኢና። ካብኡ ወፃኢ ዝተፈላለዩ ሙድ ስታብላይዘርስ ኣለውና ኢንሳይድ ሜዲሲን ምስያ ተሓሒዘይ እቲ ሲዥር ወይ ኤፒለፕሲ ኣብ ቆልዑት ኣውቲዝም ስፔክትረም ዘለዎም ስጋብ 30 ዓመት ዝኾኑ ቆልዑት ከጓንፎም ይኽእል እዩ። እዚ ከዓ ብዝያዳ ኒውሮሎጂካል ዲስኦርደር ወይ ኢንተሌክቹዋል ዲስብሊቲ ዘለዎም ቆልዑት ኦን ዘ ስፔክትረም ክኾኑ ከለዉ ናይ ሪስክ ናይ ሲዥር ምህላው ዝለዓለ ክኸውን እዞም ቆልዑት ከዓ ሕክምና የድልዮም ነቲ ሲዥር አንታይ ኮምፐልሲቭ ሜዲኬሽን ክትቦም ከለኻ ከዓ ነቲ ሙድ ነቲ ቢሄቪየር ክጠቅም ይኽእል እዩ። ስለዚ ነዚያ ሓፂረ ከይዝሓትኩም ኢለ briefly giving a very brief presentation on psychiatrist's role in treating autism spectrum disorder, not necessarily the autism, but the associated behaviors and symptoms that may be prevalent in autism spectrum disorder. I think this will conclude our presentation. We'll open the podium for any questions that you may have. And we thank you for all your attention. There was one question in the back there, Petros. If you can go there, just to the end.
Yeah, my question was about what others who was talking earlier. My question was about what others who was talking earlier. That's the one about, parents who were saying parents problem, raising the irritable, whatever it is. It's not only the parents. Yes, there is parents, it's more what we have focused. But sometimes also the system is not an even when we're trying to work. Some parents, like myself, I was in, for all parasites, my son, he's 20 now, which is still his Indian health. The one I want to just tell your parents still there. For now, yes, we are happy. We have all these people that go, and they are advice also for the other people to use whatever is my son, from good to bad, what he is there now. I hope, still, my hope is not ended there. We are working with our level, with all the systems we try. But what I'm saying is sometimes even the parents, they are trying their best. If they don't get help, if they don't know where to go, that's really, really hard. Including me or something like me might be there. But now I'm happy. I'm happy it's going to be resolved, even though let me be example also for the other people. That's only I'm saying. We cannot say on the parents. Parents, yes, most of us are not educated. You have language barrier. If we have language barrier, there is a translation or whatever they say, but even sometimes it doesn't work. Whatever translated they bring is not very say. Even they try, still they have language barrier. We cannot translate exactly the way what the parents want. It's just, we are in the right track. Let's keep continuing. I'm so happy. And I hope all the parents are happy. And we have all
Sure.
the right. Thank you.
Sure.
Earlier, Neviat is an amazing mom. She's been working hard for her son, and we've been working together. And she is right. It's not always the parents' fault. Sometimes breaking the barriers, it's a huge struggle. I understand.
Any other questions?
Really, it's not a question. I work from a Montgomery County Public School, and I wish our parents always think, okay, whatever the teacher says. Please advocate. Ask questions. It's okay to say no. And tell them a lot. They don't always listen. So it's important that you question it, you don't sign it, and if you need more clarification, you get it. And yes, there's a lot out there, but if you say okay, they'll say, oh, he was happy. So there was no disagreement. So always question. You are the best advocate for your child. They are there with them 6 hours. That's it. You're with them every day, all night. I do have one question though. What is considered a good time for a child to have ABA session? Like how many hours a day? How many days a week? And if you know any good company. I don't know any company.
It depends on the child's needs. If there is a lot of communication deficit, if there's so many deficits in social skills and functional skills, then, Autism Speaks recommends 25 to 40 hours a week. But it's not always easy, 25 to 40 hours, especially if you have a kid going to school. You don't have that many hours. So sometimes, some parents pull out their kids from school to get therapy. You have to see, you have to judge it for your own kid. For example, if your kid will benefit more from one-on-one sessions at home, more than the social skills that he gets at school, maybe pulling him out of school is not a bad idea. But if his skills are just, if you can just meet his needs with 2 to 3 hours a day, then you can do it after school. There's no one-fit-all answer. Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, then, in conclusion, I would like to thank our guests for coming and sharing such valuable lessons, your experiences, your journeys in the lessons. Thank you so much. I would like to invite those of you who are here to please, take materials. I saw this one that says first steps after receiving an autism diagnosis, which is an extremely rich information here. And maybe we'll post it on the website for others to access it, but in essence it summarizes almost everything we talked about today as if we put it together. And then, both Azeb and the team from EESNC and Dr. Agad, they have brought in, material, so we thank them for that. And I would like to thank Dr. Petros Vazgi, Haile, and Dr. Sagabo, who've been working with me in organizing this. We will would like to get feedback from you as to what you would like to discuss or address, or even if you have any suggestions in the medium we use, we're very open for it. And thank you all for coming and participating, and thank you for all those who did it.
Thank you, everybody. I want to thank the panel again for all your participation today. You took time. This is a lot of work. Your parents, you committed this time to help us out. In the name of the MedhaneAlem Church and the Bizen Foundation, we would like to thank you. We would like to, everybody, they have brought us a lot of resources here. Please take it. Especially there are materials that have been translated into your local languages, either Amharic or Tigrinya. Please take advantage of them. That's all for you. Thank you. And we have
one last announcement. Hey, Pedros. The Dr. has brought in evaluations out there. People can take a moment to fill out. Which one's that?